Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Educated Colin Snap channel. How you doing? So yesterday there was a patch that came out, and I reviewed that on the channel. But almost afterwards, there was an extra, I guess, dump of information for card acquisition changes, and I definitely want to talk about the main issue from that particular information dump. Obviously, you can go and read this information yourself, right? They have some new changes to card acquisition. What I really wanted to talk about was the flexible series drops. I actually don't have a lot of issues with most of what they add. I think overall it's a healthier change. The one issue I have primarily is this flexible series drop. So they want to be looking at the series drop cadence. Currently, all cards are on the same schedule from Series 5 down to Series 3, but reality is not all cards are created equally appealing. So going forward, they're going to be exercising more flexibility in what cards drop. So all that matters, what to take away is that for this patch, they are keeping DarkHawk and Knull in Series 4. They're supposed to be in Series 3 right now, but they're keeping DarkHawk and Knull in Series 4. And to kind of appease the player base, what they're doing is they're moving next month's Series 4 drops, which would have been Dazzler, Shadow King, Sword, and Ghost. They're moving that up a month, trying to say, oh, we're dropping more cards than ever before. Even though most people were really excited for Darkhawk, most people are really excited for Knull to start playing more meta decks and really including those in a lot, because those are a key function of powerful series, powerful decks right now, and missing out on those, making those more expensive, is just going to limit the amount of players that are able to access those cards. Now, that's the introduction, but moving on to the main topic is, are DarkHawk and Knull issues of the system that they have right now? I just want to talk about this decision to have flexible series drops, what it means, and kind of my thoughts on it in retrospect, I guess. So first thing is, we had predictable series drops. This is something that was generally, you can argue, should they have drops at all? Should cards be in different series? Blah, blah, blah. You could argue that, but the system that they've created, they had this, okay, things start at Series 5, they go down to Series 4 in 3 months, and then 3 months later, they're going down to Series 3. So in 6 months, you'll get a Series 3 card no matter where it starts, so you can really plan around that. This allowed for players to plan for the future, so okay, maybe in May, maybe in June, I'll be able to get this card. And you could also pre-pin, so you're saying, oh, Dark is going to be a Series 3, maybe I should pin it. Now I can get it for the new price, that kind of thing. You could also plan around a drop. Let's say you wanted to play Galactus, but you didn't have Knull. Now you could pin the card and say, okay, or you could say next drop, I will get Knull. Now I can play these decks that I need that card. And then tokens could be saved strategically. So you could say, okay, I need this much tokens to get High Evolutionary and Knull. So I'll just save up for this amount of tokens, and then bam, I'll be good for that, right? Where none of that is really guaranteed anymore. If a card is super popular, if a card is really something that people are going to be playing around, now it's a lot harder to just say, oh yeah, I'll just wait until this month because it's guaranteed. Now you don't know. They were really, I guess, very limited in what they're actually telling you, what the cadence will be. They haven't announced, oh, Darkhawk and Knull are going to be moved to next month. They didn't really say anything like that. So we really have to assume the worst here, where there is no guarantee that Darkhawk is just being, and Knull are being stuck in Series 4 for an extra month. It might be even longer. So they really weren't clear. And when you do big changes like this, where you're subverting players' expectations, you have to let them know what the new changes are, so that they can now replan. So that kind of stuff really worries me in a sense. Another thing is that good cards get punished, right? So DarkHawk and Knull, very strong cards, very good in the current meta. They're not really doing this for Ghost, right? Ghost is not staying Series 4, right? Because no one's playing Ghost, no one's playing, Snowguard or anything like those. Those cards are not going to be stuck in Series 4, stuck in Series 5, that kind of thing. It's really the cards that people want to play, want to buy. Those are really the cards that are going to stay in a higher series. So if players like a card or is a meta defining cards, those will stay in. So really, it's not necessarily good for players in that, DarkHawk is moving from Series 5 to Series 3. No, that's not going to happen because those cards are cards that people want to buy, want to play, right? You're not going to see Jeff move down to Series 3. Very likely. I'd be very surprised because those are the cards people want. And they want people to, spend resources on those cards because that's how you get the money for the company, right? So it's a little lackluster that anytime a new card is going to be released, you have to be thinking, oh, how long is this going to stay? Is it ever going to drop down to Series 3 in a predictable fashion? Because if it becomes really popular, really meta defining, there's an incentive to keep it in a higher tier. So that kind of thing really worries me, in that you're giving yourself this tool to just extend the cycle of how expensive a card is if it just overperforms your expectations or anything like that. So, not a great sign in my opinion in terms of what you're planning. You were hoping, okay, every card is available to every player in 6 months, right? Now that because of this announcement, that's not really the case. So we don't know how long cards are going to stay in an extra series, right? If it's only going to be an extra month or if it's going to be multiple months, we don't know. If they were sure that it was just an extra month, they probably would have said that, but they didn't. So now we have to assume that it's not. Next up, right, using flexible series drops in the meta defining tool overall just hurts the player base. So all this really does is that less players will have access to the cards they want. Yes, you could argue that they moved the 4 cards, Dazzler, Shadow King, Sauron, and Ghost, down an extra month ahead of schedule, but they're not going to be doing that for every single month, right? You're not going to get these drops where things are always moving ahead of schedule. This is more, it definitely feels more of something done to appease the player base because they know that keeping DarkHawk and Knull is going to have a very negative reaction. So it kind of feels like, oh, I hope you guys will take this offering more than this is something we want to do, planned for the future. This is just the normal rhythm of things. 6 cards in the series drops every month. And another thing they did say that is also very worrying, if we go back to the discussion, they also said here that they're where is it? We may even skip a monthly series drop entirely when the meta looks fun and healthy, right? So this is also very, very worrying to me in terms of they are now announcing that you might not even get any series drops in a month. So the cadence of 6 months was always what we known. Now they might just say, you know what, the meta, we like it. Let's just skip it entirely. And it really puts a wrench on your planning of drops and things like that. Because if right now you were like 6 months, okay, it's, the 5th, right? The 11th is when I'll get something. Now it's like, oh, we have no idea because they, at will, with no rhyme or reason, can now just skip months because they've added that one sentence in an announcement, right? Like, seems very problematic to me to just give them that freedom when you want them to be limited by the predictability. You want them to be like, oh, we have to drop this because the plan is 3 months to drop. Being able to just skip willy-nilly just does not seem like it's going to be helpful for the player base. So that kind of thing, I really think, is going to hurt the player base in the long run, especially when players are expecting to get these drops so that they can start playing with the new cards. They're saving up so that they can get it for a cheaper price. When players have less access to the cards they want, it's really just not a great system. Next thing I do want to talk about, right, is a healthy meta works when every player even when every player has every card, right? Like if you're having to make cards obscure, make cards hard to access for the meta to stay healthy, then it's not really a healthy meta, is it? It's just like, oh, a lot of players just don't have access to this. That's why the meta looks healthy. But if we gave every player every card, well, oh, the meta wouldn't be healthy anymore. Well, then that's fake meta. That's fake health, right? Like you're not really creating a truly healthy meta. You're creating a system where some players can take advantage of the powerful tools, but a lot of players have to rely on secondary compositions to maybe compete. And that's really not what you want a healthy meta to be. You want there to be lots of options and players can play anything or a lot of different things and they all do well into each other, right? That's what a healthy meta is. And if you're having to say, oh, DarkHawk and Knull are too strong to give much easier access for players to have, well then that's really a more problematic of the system itself and the design of the cards more than the meta being healthy. So let's just limit players' access to more cards. So I really don't agree with that argument that they made where we might skip a month or we might change things to keep things healthy. Healthy metas have all cards and it doesn't matter because cards can beat other cards. If there are cards that are just way stronger than other cards, and even if you want to make it healthy by limiting it, then you're not really creating a healthy system for players to play in. So not a big fan of that. Next thing I do want to talk about is that something is wrong with the system in that if 6 months is not enough time for a card to go from Series 3 to Series 5 to Series 3, then the system's probably wrong, right? You need to reevaluate some things because 6 months is a long time, especially in card game ecosystems, right? The weeks can definitely completely change how the meta looks and things like that. And if 6 months, you can't have a system where a card that was released 6 months ago is now like fair to play. What is going on with that system, right? You should have balance functionality where over time things will definitely go down to a baseline where things are just fair to play and you don't have to worry about releasing the card to the overall player base, right? Like you have a lot of time to play test, you have a lot of time to really balance, find where it fits in the meta and just make the numbers right. And if you can't do that within 6 months, right, like there's something wrong. Also, the system in where you're kind of drip feeding cards in like one card, there's definitely going to get to a point where players have enough of a collection where they really don't need to care too much about any particular card that comes out. There's going to be cards that do very similar things, or unless you're creating tons of very interesting and unique cards like High Evolutionary, that kind of thing, you're definitely going to come to a system where people can just kind of wait until the card is cheap enough to buy because there's not a big need to get something early or get something in particular because there's a lot of options, right? So as you keep adding cards and there's no rotations or anything like that, you're definitely just going to have a system where people have 200 cards and a new card comes out, but there's a lot of easy alternatives that you don't have to play this card in particular. And it's just going to be harder to keep people buying, the cards you keep adding unless something changes or you're creating a very unique card that is very enticing for players. So that is something more of a game design aspect that's very likely to occur where people just have enough cards. And unless the card is like very crazy or very unique, you're going to have enough alternatives that you really don't have to bother with any particular card that comes out. But that's not really the thing I'm talking about here. I'm just saying like 6 months should be enough time to balance a card, should that when it goes from Series 3 to Series 5 to Series 3, it shouldn't be a problem. So there's definitely some things that need to be worked out there to make it a little bit more smooth. You really shouldn't be required to keep a card up a series if the balancing is done correctly, in my opinion. But obviously it can be hard, but still, I still think 6 months should definitely be enough time. So overall, I I was thinking, if you are going to do changes like this, they have to be announced well in advance, right? I'm talking months in advance. You can't blindside the player base like this, where, oh, here's a patch, we're keeping something. Uh, Things we've expected this for months and months and months. We're going to change it. No announcement beforehand. Players that were planning on this, on DarkHawk and Knull being dropped, no no real indication that this is going to happen. No news, nothing. It's just like, hey, this has been happening for years. We're changing it, or for months we're changing it. That a lot of players were planning around DarkHawk being Series 3, Knull being Series 3, and now they're getting unfairly punished. Like, I have both of the cards, right? So it doesn't affect me in particular, but I do understand, I'm getting a lot of comments like, "Oh, I was planning on this being Series 3. I was waiting on this, and then I could get this, or I didn't get a card because I was hoping to get this card, and now all of those plans are dashed away." And if you are going to do something this drastic, you definitely have to tell your player base so that they don't get this type of immediate, like, "Oh, what are you doing, second dinner?" Right? If you are going to do something like this, tell them way in advance so that they can at least adjust. And I'm talking months. If you're going to do something like this, if you're going to keep something longer in a series than a month, you got to announce it way ahead, right? If you tell them a week ago, right, that's not going to change the reaction. People are still going to be very disappointed in the company for doing that kind of thing. So you definitely have to get ahead of it if you are going to do this. Just be aware that, oh, these cards are looking very problematic, and we're not going to be able to fix them in quick enough. So let's tell people, hey, we're not going to be able to do this. Let's move it ahead. Let's tell them ahead of schedule. So that's something that I feel should be done. But overall, in terms of like suggestions, I always try to add a suggestion here. My suggestion is just don't do this. I really don't think you're helping the player base feel confident with a system like this. Don't make mid bats, right? We already have big bats, cards that are staying Series 5. Don't do this where you're having cards that are staying Series 4. You're really defeating the purpose of the series drop system, right? So that players can have access to all cards as it goes, and there's just a limited amount of cards that are not available to players. And just announce any deviants from the drop system months in advance. I should have did variants, but whatever. From the drop system months in advance, so that people know, right? Like, knowledge will still, like, over time lessen the blow of disappointment. So even though, yes, they're going to be disappointed that you're not dropping down Knull and DarkHawk, if they know months in advance, at least they're like, oh, okay, when. Okay, maybe I should get DarkHawk early, right? Like, let's say as soon as DarkHawk and Knull dropped to Series 4, you were like, hey guys, there's a very good likelihood that DarkHawk and Knull are going to stay in Series 4 for an extended period of time. Well, that would change people's plans immediately, right? You would have the system where people are just getting DarkHawk and Knull for 3,000 a little bit more earlier than they were planned, because they know, oh, it's going to last in Series 4 longer than normal. So that kind of thing, even though people would be like, oh, why are we doing this? At least people would be more okay with it when it comes to this time, when it drops down, instead of blindsiding people. So overall, I just don't think you should do this, right? I don't think you should make cards that are stuck in Series 4. I think already having cards stuck in Series 5 is like, not a fan of, so I wouldn't do this for Series 4. But if you are going to go this direction, at least let players know months in advance so that they can plan, right? Like, when it drops down to Series 4, like that's when you want to start, or like the month after, that's when you want to start letting people know that it's going to stay there. So overall, I do want to say, right, that the rest of the card the patch changes were overall good, but this flexible series drops did not hit the mark, right? So if we do look at the rest of the changes, right? Having cards go down from 4 to 3 earlier, having cards start in Series 4, right, which is also pretty good. I think those are good ideas. I do think more ways to acquire tokens is generally good, right? No one's really going to be sad about that. I do think the weekend missions are a little bit questionable, right? That one depends on whether um the season pass card is only that one card. It means that it's just a kickback, right? You have to buy the season pass to get the gold back. So, and same thing with newly released cards. If it's only that one newly released card for the week, well, then it's just a kickback once again, right? So these aren't really ways for players to earn gold. This is ways for spending players to get some of their resources back, which is a very different mentality. I do think this earn credits thing is going to affect every player, right? Like you just have to win games. So that one I'm generally okay with, but you can't really announce, oh, you're adding ways for players to get more gold and tokens when the gold and tokens is just a kickback for the players that paid or got the cards early. That one I think is a little disingenuous. But overall, right, I do think the rest of the changes were good. It's just the flexible series drops I think are not the right direction for a second dinner to take. But what are your thoughts on it? Definitely have my opinions, but hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys kind of understand where I'm coming from. And take care. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one. Once you watch him, you won't go back. He'll teach you to marvel snap. Your skills will be improving. How you do